everybody. Welcome to Wild Raven Tarot. My name is Bobby. I am here live with my friends Gerald Schwab, TarotStache, Mr. Ramon Santiago, Moon Scarab, and
Hello.
the three of us are here today to talk about our favorite decks, the different decks we use for different types of readings, how we apply them, when we reach for them, what our go-to decks are, and then we're going to talk about how tarot is used with magic, and we'll get into that discussion. I'm excited to see everybody starting to show up. We've got Suzanne, Selena, Essence of the Moon, Linda. Hey, how you doing? Linda is going to be on Behind the Cards coming up, so I'm excited about that.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Now, hey, Joanne, how you doing? So I know that Ramon, your first deck was the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Gerald, what was
Mm-hmm.
your first deck?
Okay. My first my first tarot deck was actually gifted to me. It was the Inner Child cards. And so these were given to me by a friend. And because she got this deck from her mother and she couldn't read with it. I never read tarot. She's looking at the cards. She's like, going, God, and what does this mean? And I'm looking, well, it means this. And then she's reading the guidebook and she's like, huh, what's this one mean? And I'm looking, well, it's about this. And she's like, huh, okay, here you go. So she gave me that. But everybody knows that one of my favorite decks is the Robin Wood Tarot. That's the one you were all waiting for.
See, when I think of you, I think of the Deviant Moon Tarot is the deck I associate in my head with you.
Why's that? I'm curious.
Because you always use it. I love that deck. It's one of my favorites, especially when you do the punch out deck.
There is, yeah.
Deviant Moon is right next to me at all times. I use this deck for questions of finance and
okay.
work, because it's very industrial to me.
I do like the Deviant Moon. I have probably, I don't know, 8 different versions of the Deviant Moon, because the bordered, the bordered, the not bordered, or, the borderless, the different colors and all that stuff. And for me, the Deviant Moon, Patrick Valenza, it's a funny deck. It is just hilarious for me to read. It scares some people, but it doesn't scare me. So
yeah,
very whimsical. Yeah, it had its own singular energy. I mean, it's one of its own. All of his decks, but that one in particular, like it's has a unique energy to itself.
Yes,
I think the card that gets me on the Deviant Moon is when they're playing chess and there's a human underneath the table holding it up. I can't remember which card it is. That speaks volumes, and it's images like that open up the doorway. Different decks have different representations of the same cards, but some decks just speak differently.
Oh yeah.
What is your go-to deck, Ramon?
Honestly, it really depends what I'm reading, and like for example, everybody knows that one of my spiritual deities is Santa Muerte. So I have like specific decks that I use to connect with her. Specific questions, and I have them here right in front of me, and I access and I touch them every day. Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. I mean, that's one of them in the market, but that's not one that I actually use for my readings. I use like other ones that are related to Santa
See, I
Muerte.
never would have known that.
Nice.
Yes,
Interesting.
yeah. I have other ones that are like for everyday readings, and like Healing Light Tarot. This is a very beautiful one. When I want to like access, topics about healing, about light. You know, when it's a more ethereal energy. There's other ones that are more down to earth that I use for that type of specific of readings, like all the decks from Claire Goodchild. There's the Memento Mori, Lenormand, and
I want that one. Yes.
I recently got that one, but I have not used it much.
oh my god, I love it. I love it. I have all of her decks. I'm a fan of Claire Goodchild. She has that. She has the Antique Anatomy Tarot.
Mhm.
That's the one that people know the most, and it's more like of a pip deck. But there's also the Oracle of Oddities, and this was published in 3 parts, and it's like this gigantic stack of Oracle cards, and it's a totally different energy.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
She's actually reprinting it. It's there's gonna the pre-order will start in May. I'm not advertising it, but I'm excited about it because there's a lot of new cards that are coming out, and I'm going to include it. But I have all of her
Nice.
decks. I have some of hers that are for ancestry work, like the Memento Mori ancestors and advisors. So it really depends on what type of energy that I'm trying to access, what type of questions I want to ask. Yeah, so that they all have like their own feeling and your own way to connect with them.
May I add something, Ramon, based
Yeah,
upon what you said? Is that okay, Bobby?
Yeah.
This is
of
Gerald
course.
trying to be a good guest and not being pushy.
Knock your socks off.
No, but
It's,
yes, I also work with Santa Muerte, and you had mentioned ancestors. This for me is my go-to for ancestor energy, and I have no idea why. It is just what happened when I picked up the deck, and it's sort of it's almost like it encoded itself that I'm being used for these type of readings.
It's
mhm.
clicked into place, is what I call it.
Yeah,
Clicked.
Yeah.
that's a
Uh,
beautiful deck, and I have it. My only thing with the depiction is that um it's beautifully done, and I appreciate it for the artistic
Sure.
representation of it. But to me, it reads more like Day of the Dead more than
Yes.
Santa Muerte. You know, I think
yeah.
it was made in a more palatable way to be able to access the
Yes.
Santa Muerte energy, because a lot of people can't deal with the imagery of
I walked into
some.
a store yesterday. I was spending the day in Tucson getting my doctors taken care of. I went into a witch store that I'd never been in. They had a back room. You remember that scene in The Craft when there's the altar room and everything? I look through the door, there's that room, and there's statues of Santa Muerte all over the place. And I was like, oh, dude, I got to get a picture. And then I was like, no, don't disrespect the space. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, anytime I see something like that, it just drives me happy. It really does.
Yeah,
And I
like
think,
this. So there's 2 Santa Muerte decks that I use the most, and this they're both published in Mexico, and one it's called Tarot de la Santa Muerte, and funny because the cover has an image from the Santa Muerte that is on
Yes.
yeah, that's a
your deck.
Fabio Lestrade image, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, none of this image is not in that deck. It's a totally different vibe. Like for example, this is the High Priestess. It's in Spanish, and it's La Sacerdotisa, and you see it's a different type of depiction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ace of Cups, for example. The cool thing about this one, it gives you also the keywords. I mean, which I
Uh-huh.
really don't need, but this deck comes in 2 versions, comes with keywords and without the keywords. Um, and there's some of the meanings in the cards that are different from the traditional way we read the cards. Like for example, the 7 of Cups. It traditionally we read it as a lot of options in front of you. It could be illusions, etc. In this deck, it talks about vices and hallucination.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
I
and
like that.
it's a very different flavor in terms of some of the meanings, the depictions. there's cards that are just like standalone oracle cards, like protection, for example.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Yeah,
nice.
so yeah, so I use this deck. This is one of the decks, one of the tarot decks. The other tarot deck that I have is it's this one, and it's very simple. It's a pip deck, but each one of them has also an image of Santa Muerte. So it
Oh,
has
that's
upright
great.
in reverse meanings, and this is in Spanish and English.
I can't wait for the new
That
Chris
one.
Butler deck and Ken Payne, the Hecate Tarot that they're releasing soon. I'm so
Mhm.
excited about
Yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
think
And- yeah. It's so that's in terms of like tarot decks, but with Santa Muerte, I use other decks. You know, I have Lenormand. I use the Oracle, the Mexican Lottery. I have a set of playing cards that it's a Dia de los Muertos one, and yeah, so
Nice.
those ones.
I love that. I think it's really beautiful, and I would encourage everybody to think about this. It doesn't matter how other people use the deck; it matters your relationship with the deck. And you know, some people, their only experience with Santa Muerte may be really associated with the Day of the Dead, which is fine. But there's, just like with any deity, there's so much that we don't understand until we actually sit down with them and work with them and have them unfold what we're ready to experience. So I love that. I love
I
that.
think a lot of the Santa Muerte, what people think about her comes from movies where we
Yes.
see
Mm-hmm.
gangbangers associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot more to it than that, just
Yeah,
like any
definitely.
deity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's associated with a deity of people who are in narcos or prostitutes, because you know it's and the media has depicted that.
How, you just cut out, Ramon. Ramon, you cut out.
Hold on,
Yeah,
He's figuring it
there
out.
you are.
you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. Sorry about that. So it's associated with narcos because you know a lot of them have tattoos of Santa Muerte, which they do for protection, but they also have tattoos of Jesus, and nobody associates
Mhm.
with narcos or the Virgin Mary or La Guadalupe. You know, so a lot of
Out here, because we're in a border town area, a lot of the people cross with images of Santa Muerte
Mhm.
for a successful crossing across the
Yeah.
desert. They're
Hmm.
coming in. So yeah, it's really big out here. It really is. Um, when you get a deck, since we're on the ancestors talk, when you get a deck and you want to use it for a certain thing, but it wants to do another thing, has that ever happened to you? Like I've bought decks for ancestor work before, and they just don't work for ancestor work, but they work great for relationship spreads, which is surprising on certain decks. For instance, where did it go? There it is. My Tero Mucha deck. I got this because the images remind me of my family growing up on this deck.
Mm-hmm.
It just has a real. All the women on here are curvier than normal. Those are the women in my family, real women.
Hmm.
And I was really expecting to use it for ancestor work, but it just doesn't work well for that for me. But relationships, it's really good.
I've never had that happen to me, Bobby. I've never argued with the deck. I've never had a deck talk back to me.
Mine
Anything
do.
like that. I'm waiting for the lightning to strike because I'm bullshitting you.
Okay, good.
I am
I was like,
totally
am I
bullshitting.
alone out on this limb? Oh my gosh.
No. What I have found is when that happens, there's a reason that that deck doesn't want to be used for that reading, and I need to go. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to find a different deck.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Some decks surprised me. The Skeleton Tarot. I got that just for Halloween show, just to have something to play with. And as soon as I opened it, I felt one of my cousins who had passed, and I actually heard him say "cool." But so now I use that deck for ancestor work, but specifically for my cousin Charles. Um, I have decks specific to my aunts, my cousins. That happens.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's every deck has their energy, and a lot of times, I mean, even if you try to connect it in a spiritual way, it's like you feel the attraction or the repulsion, the repelling of the intent. It's
The
happened to me.
polarity of it.
I want to use it for specific topics, and it just doesn't work. Like it's hollow. It's empty. Like I don't get a response.
Ooh,
That's
hollow.
when
Good.
yeah.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
And
say hi to a couple
that's
of people
yeah.
after you finish this. Remind me. I
No,
want to
no,
hear
no.
more
It's a
about the hollow thing.
mm-hmm.
Because it's true. Some decks just feel empty to me, and those are the ones that end up in the giveaway pile.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with a tarot deck needing a timeout. And I mean, seriously, because there's some
No, it's
decks
true.
where I have gotten them and I was so looking forward to it. And I'm like going, wow, this is not what I was thinking. And so I put them on the shelf, and energetically speaking, I'm not sure who changes. Is it me or the deck, or is it something else? But suddenly it's like, oh, I love this. It's so
Yes.
Yeah.
good for me. And
Like you rediscover it. I totally
yes,
agree. And I think a lot of times it's us. I pick decks that I, I I have decks for different reasons. I have decks that I really like the topic. I have decks that I just have for artistic reasons. I don't use them
mhm,
at all for
yep,
divination. There's other ones that at the moment when I picked them, I felt an attraction. I went to work with it, and like it didn't feel right at the moment. And then I just let it breathe. And I think I went to a different spiritual stage in which I was able to rediscover the deck and being able to work with it and connect. I think we've all experienced that at one point or another.
yeah.
That's why, just give time to your deck, let it breathe, and go back to it and see if it's the right moment. I don't know. I think it's a personal journey that each one of us has with
Well
their
said.
decks,
Yeah.
and you get to a point that when it's not you're not going anywhere with it. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to get rid of it. I mean, you can rehome it. Maybe someone will find uh the proper use to it. Um,
I do. I
but
rehome because I just end up running out of space, and I don't see any reason to keep decks I'm never going to use. There's
mm,
some decks I keep just because they're cool, even though I'm not going to use them. Like I just got this Universal Tarot um, Professional Edition, the big ass one. I'm not going to use this in regular readings. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
mm,
something that can be done. It's huge. It's bigger than my last boyfriend as far as size. Taller. I mean, don't get
Wait a
dirty.
minute.
is
Are
that
we
wrong?
talking about decks?
Is that a
the
bad thing?
um, it is a beautiful deck, but it's not something that's practical. That's the word I was looking for. Practical,
Mm,
and that
Yeah,
breaks my heart sometimes when decks just aren't.
with my tiny
aren't
hands, all of the decks are huge.
you
I have
know,
a deck
my
that
friend,
size in my collection. I have like a tiny miniature
I love it.
set of
I love
decks.
it.
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
love your head. The Joey has gotten me into cutting my cards down. So every time there's a deck that she sees I got, she offers to cut it down. This is one she cut down for me, the
Nice.
Dark Moon Oracle. And it makes them a lot easier to do, but some of them, I just couldn't see cutting them. No matter
Well,
what I
and
heard
yeah,
for them.
it is one of those things. We all have our preference. And just because a deck doesn't meet our qualifications to be added to the collection doesn't make them any less beautiful. And
Oh
Mhm.
yeah,
yes, I'm like you, Ramon. I have decks that I will never use because it's 78 pieces of artwork that's in a
Mhm.
box in a shelf, and I can take them out and enjoy them.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
speaking of artwork, what is your most beautiful decks, Gerald? What do you consider your most beautiful decks? I'm going to ask you too, Ramon, so start digging them out.
Mm.
Wow. Well, I think part of what I am really attracted to is I am attracted to the beauty in the artwork because of what it's set, and the beauty of the artwork in the decks and how they resonate for me. So I'm always I'm a big supporter of the Jamie Sawyer out of hand. I like the
Oh yeah,
artwork. The artwork's beautiful. It reads nicely for me because I can definitely, when I want to have people see themselves in a reading, I mean, it's all point of view. So it's truly amazing. I am a big fan of the Robin Wood Tarot. We all know that. I like the artwork in the Robin Wood. I like the Kelly Burton Journey of the Sacred Bee, Keeper of the Sacred Bee, and please hold. These are the so it's just really beautiful. I mean, it works for me. So some people know that the Journey of the Sacred Bee, but I
I
also
like the B tarot.
yeah, the this is it the Kelly, is it Kelly Burton's version? Do you know?
I don't know offhand. I think it's in the other room.
So
Yeah, it's not
and
here.
yeah,
So many decks. Oh, I'm swimming. I pulled too
well,
many out for this show.
Maru mentioned the Illuminati tarot,
Oh yeah.
um, and I love that one, and that is mine and Jeffrey's deck. It's our relationship deck. So and I love the artwork in the Corinne Kenner's The Wizard's Tarot. This is out of print.
Yes.
Don't go looking for it. You're not going to find it. And it's really beautiful. The guidebook is so powerful as well. This is a little more Celtic than my personal connections, but it's also a little steampunky.
I love steampunky.
So, but yeah, so I'll stop there. But I'll keep this out because we're going to ask about magic.
Yes, my go-to decks, my two go-to decks. You'll find this hard to believe, and it may come as a surprise, but um, the Healing Light Tarot is my
What?
go-to. I
Really?
know,
Would have never
I
thought.
know. I've kept it hidden well, but I'm ready to come out of the closet on it. Um, the Healing Light Tarot just speaks to me in a way that other decks don't. And recently, um, the it's in my box still. The tarot, the Crow Tarot, MJ Poulinane,
Oh,
that
yeah.
has become, and I think that's why it's in the other room. I was doing readings this morning. Um, those two decks just vibe with me in a certain way, and which is weird because I like darker decks. I like Dancing in the Dark, Murder of Crows, um, True Black. I like decks that are black that I can pull in just from the void. Um, so too much color doesn't do it for me. Um, I think the only bright deck I like, or lighter deck, quote unquote, is the Ethereal deck. I've really gotten
Hmm.
into using this
Mm.
one. It's got a gentler vibe that is not anything I'm used to. I get some softening up in my old age.
You heard it here first. We're all going to make that a short and put it on our YouTube channels. So
Some decks surprise me, like the Tattoo Tarot, the 8 coins. A friend of mine gave this to me recently, and I wasn't sure how I was going to like it because it looks great online and in the pictures. But
oh yeah. Hmm.
I was scared I'd get it and it wouldn't connect. Well, it really did. I like it. So that's a new vibe for me. It's in the same vein as the Lorenzi Tarot. It's very, it has that same middle vibe to me. Not too dark, not too light, just sweet. Yeah, and the Lorenzi Tarot, since we're talking about weird decks, have you guys seen this deck? Tell me that's not David Bowie right there.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
What the?
Mhm.
Well, that's 2 David Bowies.
Yeah.
And I
I
like
mean,
the
right down to the
artwork. I like the
slash.
artwork style. It reminds me, there was this cartoon that in NTV used to play in the 90s late at night, Eon Flux. And it
I
had that
Yes.
love
style.
Dion Flux.
I love Eon Flux too. And it reminds me of that style of cartoon.
Hmm.
Yeah, that dangerous style. Who are your favorite artists?
To me, it's Claire Goodchild. I definitely love her decks. Christopher Butler, definitely. I like some publishers. Like there's this small company called Luca Decks. They're in Turkey, and they produce like these amazing decks. I have like 6 or 7 of them.
Hmm.
This is one of the decks, and the all of the
Ooh.
cards are like they have that tone of red, like uh justice. Look at that image. It's like
Oh,
a
nice.
like a movie poster tarot.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
very art
Hmm.
noir type.
The Hangman.
Oh,
How
nice.
beautiful. Death. Look at this card. This is my favorite card.
That's a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's hard to point, because to point like a specific like type of artistry or genre, at least in my case, because I know I like a lot of different styles. In terms of topics, I love skeletons, skulls. Everybody knows that, but that doesn't mean that every deck that's out there that has a skeleton or a skull like resonates with me. You know,
Right.
and that's happened with a couple of them. But I have a big collection of skeleton and skull themed decks, and I don't necessarily use them with Santa Muerte either. I have my specific Santa Muerte ones. I have ones that I use like certain topics, and other ones that I use depending on the season. But in general terms, I go from like medieval art all the way to futuristic. And a lot of things in
Same.
between. Like for example, there's this one that I like. It's called the Byzantine Tarot. I love Byzantine art.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous deck, and the cards are amazing. Look at this depiction of the sun.
That's great.
Yeah, I love religious art, and not for religious reasons. Just because of the aesthetic of the art style.
Hmm.
Uh,
This is yeah, the world, and it's called Cosmos. Look at the back of the cards.
I do like the backs of that card.
They're
Some
amazing.
decks are so cool, but they have certain things that mess them up for me, like card
Mm-hmm.
backs. If the card backs are jacked up, I just can't bond with the deck. The other thing that I don't like is on tarot decks on some of them. What did I do with it? I just had it in my hand. How they have writing on the actual fronts of the cards. Oh, they're right in front of me. Like down here in the corner, you see
I don't like the
these.
copyright on the side. Yeah,
Yes, that's what I'm
it's a
talking
throw off.
about.
Yeah, and that happens with a lot of the writer weight from. Oh my god, uh, forgot. But a lot of who was it that was publishing? Oh, U.S. Game, of course. U.S. Games after 1970 started stamping the copyright on the cards, and it was horrible. I started with a Rider-Waite, and I was lucky. I shared this story before, but tarot came to me. The way I got into tarot was because I was going through a spiritual journey, and I was trying to find like some spiritual connection, and I was exploring like different philosophies of of religious nature. And one day I was flipping through channels, and I came across a video, or YouTube suggested tarot with it as a form of spiritual connection, and I got really interested in it. And that same day I went looking for a tarot deck online. I couldn't decide which one was the appropriate one, and I said, "Oh, okay, I'll figure it out." So the next day I went to work, and I was at my office, and I went to a, a place in which we have a recycling bin, and I went to dispose of some papers, and there was a tarot card on the recycling bin, and I was like in shock because I knew what tarot looked like through the videos, and I pulled that card, and there was another card, and then one behind it, and I said it in my mind, if all 78 cards are here, there's going to be my deck, and all 70 cards were there, and it was a Rider-Waite from the 1960s that didn't have a copyright. It was in perfect condition, and that was my deck, my first deck for years, and that's how I got into tarot. And then over time, I started learning about other styles and different forms
Mhm.
of different styles of decks, and that's when I got branched out into other cards.
Other
Until today, I
avenues.
haven't.
It was
Hmm?
something that activated your interest and got you. It added fuel to the fire of you
Hmm.
exploring different spirituality and different paths, and
Yes.
it encourages you to do that. I love that.
Hmm. Definitely.
I love that.
We've got a lot of
So,
people that are popping in and out. We've got a house full right now. I want to say hi to a couple people real quick. Um, Maru has been here. We said hi to Selena, um, Janet.
By the way, Ramon, somebody asked, Moira D asked, and Leah, they want to know what the first card was that you saw.
Oh
um,
yeah, good
it
question.
it was in order. It was the full. It was the
Nice.
full. Hmm. Literally,
It
it
was
was
in
like
order.
someone opened the box and literally just like dropped the cards there, and they just like landed there in order. And as I was picking a card, the next one was right behind it, and it was like a magic trick. Like I pulled a card, there was another one right behind.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
That's divine intervention, my friend.
right
You were
there.
meant to
Yes.
do that. There's no denying some things when the divine gets involved.
Hmm.
Gold Monday XY at 28 after asked a question, and I thought it was a good question.
What
So
is it?
28 after, see if I can pull it up. Do you guys have
Oh,
a
okay.
specific ritual for introducing new decks or reviving neglected ones?
Well, that's a good question. We're into charging decks now. Um, I think I just passed. Yes, I found it. I can't be taught. Okay.
Really, Bobby?
Yes, I get a lot of my decks as gifts from other people. Some of them are open, some of them are not. Um, when I get a new deck, whether it's straight out of the box, it gets cleansed. And then I call I call it seducing my cards. I seduce my cards. I get to know them. Um, I want to understand why their images are their images. What is the message they're going to tell me, and what kind of problems are we going to have in the future? Because I
Mhm.
know it's not always a comfortable working environment. So when I say I bond with my cards, I bond good and bad. Um, the as far as reviving old ones, then that just spirit, slamming spirit into the cards, Reiki style. Um, that's pretty much all I do. What about you guys?
I when I first get a deck, I will shuffle it. Well, actually, what I'll do is I will look through it and look at the cards. And then I will shuffle it. I have an interview spread that I do with the cards. 6 questions. It's like, tell me about yourself. What are your strengths as a deck? What are your weaknesses as a deck? How can we best learn from and collaborate with each other? What is the
I like
outcome?
that.
Our working relationship, and I'm looking because I usually have that on a piece of paper. I feel like I left one thing off there. So, but it's just a ritual that I do. But I also, here it is. See, tell me about yourself. What are your strengths as a deck? What are your weaknesses as a deck? What can you teach me? How can I best learn from and collaborate with you? And what is the outcome of our working relationship? And so if I have not used a deck for a while, I will pull this out again to see if the relationship has evolved. And that also being said, I have selenite slabs that I will sandwich a deck between if it needs to be a really good cleansing. So, and so there
Do
you
you
go.
do you guys remember an old movie called Doctor Terror's House of Horrors? It was Peter Cushing and
I do
all
remember
the
that. Yes.
big Hammer House type, and they were on a train, and they had one guy reading tarot on the train, and the card was always the death card. I always thought that was the most beautiful deck, and for years I didn't know what it was until I got older and realized it was a Marseille deck. Um, Marseille decks don't vibe with me though, even though it was one of the first decks that I saw that really got me into wanting to see the artwork of tarot. Uh, I just don't vibe with Marseille decks. Some
I
pip
came
decks
to I came to like Marseille decks after many years. I don't have many, maybe I have like 2 or 3. I use them mostly for numerology. Because it's hard for me to connect, the association of, I don't know, like the 6 of swords with the depiction of the image than just 6 swords. So it's 6 swords. I use it for numerology reasons. Whereas with other ones that have the image right there, it's easier for me to be able to connect with the message. Some people
That's
are
an
the opposite.
interesting thing. Do
Yeah, yeah.
you find that some decks it's easier to read intuitively, some decks it's easier to read numerology, some decks it's easier to
Hmm.
read astrology?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Yes.
In my case, pip decks, I use them just for numerology reasons. Same thing with playing cards. To me, they're very similar to playing cards, basically, except that they have a major arcana. And I even have tarot decks that are playing cards, and they also have major arcana included. I have 2 or 3 that are like that. They're playing cards with major arcana.
Nice.
Yeah.
I do
It's
like
it
that.
Going back to the question from before, in my case, when I started with tarot, I did a lot of research of what was the best way to activate a deck. And I was like
Oh,
driving myself crazy because everybody had like a different opinion. Um, a couple of times I slept with decks under my
Under your
pillow.
pillow.
At this one time, I
I've
put
done that so many times.
a deck with salt in it. I kind of like ruined the deck. And I charged it under the moon. I did like so many things, and like it didn't feel right for me. I felt like very ritualistic without any real meaning to myself. And I came to understand over time that it's a personal choice of how you connect with the deck. Some
yes.
people interview the deck, like in the case of Gerald. Some people have like different ways, but in my case, not all the decks that I get are used for the same purpose. There's ones that I use for spiritual reasons. There's other ones that I use specifically for introspection. Are ones that I get that I never do any readings with it, like I mentioned before, just for artistic reasons. But the ones that I use for spiritual purposes, I present them to my spiritual guides. I just let them know. I present the deck, and I ask them to use it as a tool for growth, for healing, for understanding, to use that as a voice of messages. And with that, I'm fine. That's the way it works with me, and I instantly feel the transformation of just paper and ink into something totally different.
I like that.
Yeah, and then in
I
between readings, if I'm, especially if I'm reading for multiple people or even for myself, when I grab a deck that I use constantly, I just like grab the deck, and after the reading, I knock on it 3 times. To me, that instantly like clears the energy, and that's what works for me.
I'm trying
Simple
to get
and
out of the
effective.
habit of this is going to come out wrong, so be gentle with me. I'm trying to get out of the habit of blowing after I do a reading. Uh, Air was always my preferred way of cleansing a deck, but after COVID, it's not something I want to do in front of my clients. Sit there, breathe all over my deck. But air is still the way I cleanse my deck. I use my bells, my ting shot bells. But it's not just the sound, it's the intent. Like you were saying, Ramon, you have to stick to yourself and want that sound to shake off the psychic cooties of your deck.
Isn't riffle shuffling introducing air to the deck?
It can. But it's not with intent. When you shuffle, you're not cleansing it. And you can, I guess, be done that way.
I do, because when I'm doing
get
readings online, I'm shuffling, and I'm shuffling them with the intention to clean them off. And
I never thought of doing that, Gerald.
yeah,
That's I'm gonna
intent is
start
everything.
trying that.
Intent is everything, especially when we're doing a lot of readings. That's a lot of energy and a lot of switching.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What about mini decks? Do you guys use mini decks?
Not really. I mean, what do you call mini decks? Like pocket size?
Pocket size.
Yeah, I do use them.
Yeah.
Use them, and for me, it's much easier to handle. I prefer like small size decks. I have, it's a pity I don't have it with me right now, but I always carry in my work bag what I call a divination pack, and it's this little cute bag, and it has a pocket-sized tarot, pocket-sized Lenormand, has some dice, pendulums, some geomantic sticks, and it's much easier to handle. It's portable, and I don't know, it's fun.
Somebody, Joey, actually, she's my best friend. That's why I keep mentioning her. She got me this deck. It's a MJ Cullinan mini version of the Shadow Raven Tarot.
okay.
And it's about the size of a playing card deck. So what I want to do, you were talking about a divination pack, Ramon. They have these card carriers that go on your belt for playing cards. These are the same size as that. So I want to order one and see if I could just carry my tarot cards on my belt.
You can.
I
That'll be your weapon.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. I do use mini size decks, the decks in a tin. And yes, I will buy a standard version and I will buy a mini version because I can purchase responsibly and I know my limits.
I can't.
And it's the Tiny Traveler, which is the Sasarabito. It's a lovely, lovely deck. This is one for me. I have it always. It's within arm's reach when I'm reading live, is because it's It's the deck that I use for yes or no questions. So and it's great, and it shuffles like a dream. And in fact, I bought 2 versions of this because they were on sale, and I'm like, I don't want to be without it.
I've bought this deck so many times, twice for myself. It's the Healing Light, or not Healing Light, Heaven and Earth Tarot. I got it because I love the artwork on it, and all the dudes on here just like slamming hot. Uh, I like it because it has the astrology, the Kabbalistic symbols, um, and it's got a darker vibe, but it's still Rider-Waite-Smith based. And it is, I've gotten it for myself a couple times. I bought it for gifts, and I'm about to buy it 2 more times for gifts. It is probably, next to Healing Light Tarot, the coolest deck out there for me. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
What is the one deck that you would go down defending?
What's the question?
What's the one deck you stand by? I mean, besides Rider-Waite-Smith.
I mean,
Well, it depends upon the argument. You know, to be honest with you, Bobby, I because sometimes people are, oh, that, you know, that deck is too dark for me, and I'm like, okay, great, then don't use it.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, I mean, there's some people who do not like the out of hand tarot because it's just close-ups of interactions with the hands. It's like, okay, don't use the deck. Keep your hands off my decks.
Keep your hands off my deck.
So
when
wait a minute. I want to hear what Ramon has to say about that question.
I still don't understand the question. I'm sorry. I kind of like,
we all have a deck that is ours, we associate with. Like, for me, it's the Heaven and Earth deck. I don't care what anybody says. I will defend that deck. It is the perfect deck for me. It is absolutely. But I've gotten into discussions with other tarot reader friends of mine about which deck is better. My deck is better than yours. So I guess which.
I mean,
which deck?
To me, it, like on a basic level, without going into like styles, to me, it's Rider-Waite, honestly, because a lot of people feel that they don't connect with Rider-Waite, and maybe because I started with it, and I understand much better the meaning of the minor arcana through the depictions. It's to me, it's like the basic of tarot. Like a lot of tarot decks that are out there that have images on the minor arcana are based on the Rider-Waite. You know, they might have a different style, they might have like a different flavor, the depiction is different, they might be much more modern, but I feel the base of it is Rider-Waite. You know, it's
when decks go too far astray, it bothers me. When they stray too far away from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, then it becomes problematic for me.
You're asking or you're saying?
I'm saying, and I'm asking, does that happen to you? Do you prefer to stay traditional, or
not necessarily? Like, for example, the Deviant Moon. It's a beautiful deck, and everybody loves it. I personally don't connect with it, and I have it, and I know it's a lot of people are gonna hate me because of that. I know, but at this moment, and it's going back to that we were saying, I have the deck. Maybe further ahead in time, I will understand it better. But right at this moment of my life, I don't connect with the deck. I think it's too whimsical for me to connect with it spiritually.
Gotcha.
You know? I do have other Patrick Valenza decks, and I love them. You know, different oracles, but that specific one is hard for me to be able to connect with it. There's other topics that people don't like futuristic decks, and I have one here that I absolutely exactly. It's that, you know, the cyber tarot, for example. It's very
Oh, fun.
far in the future, and to me it speaks so deeply. You know, like for example, this image of the Seven of Cups, and it's this guy looking at a lot of different monitors with different images. You know, this is maybe too avant-garde for a lot of people, you know,
I think
but
that's
to
what
me,
it is for
yeah.
me.
And it's a point in time that we, if we're lucky as a humanity, will be able to, we'll get, and it will be part of our everyday lives. And it's funny because a lot of decks that depict like modern scenes, I don't connect with either, you know. And
I just don't.
uh, I don't know. It's a personal thing. It's a personal connection that we establish with topics or decks, etc. I love
Now,
skulls and skeletons. A lot of people don't like it. They
Mhm.
find it like too morbid or too gory. But to me, it speaks
I
on a
like
different level.
dark. Darker decks
It
for me
I
are good,
don't
like
necessarily
this
see it. I don't
Sasha
necessarily see
Graham
it as
deck.
dark. To me, this is not dark. On the contrary, it's, I always say, when I see a skeleton, I see equality, because you don't see gender, you don't see race, you don't see age.
Ooh,
You see the
good viewpoint.
basic,
I like that.
the basic of who we are as a human. We walk with a skeleton inside of us, you know. So for to me, it's just like that standard of what everybody is and is at, you know.
And if you think about it, you can't really tell what color, what religion, or anything like that
Mhm.
people's skeletons are.
Exactly.
So
That's what I'm saying. You don't see gender, age, race, social status, uh,
See,
cultural
I
background with a lot of decks too.
I have a similar belief with quote unquote darker decks. Everyone has a shadow. So I'm basically trying to connect my shadow with their shadow. And I know that sounds weird and hard to understand a little bit, but in my readings, I put a lot of myself in them to connect with my client. And since I don't know what makes them happy, I do know what probably makes them sad, and that gives me a way to connect with them. That's why darker decks like the Murder of Crows is one of my favorite decks because it helps me see the pain somebody's dealing with and how we're going to fix it. How do we get you the resources you need to move forward?
Hmm.
Um, I think anybody that doesn't go into tarot, if you're a tarot reader and you're reading for other people, if the goal is not healing, you're doing something wrong. The whole concept should be about reaching higher levels of healing and spirituality. Speaking of spirituality, I made an assumption earlier, and I apologize for that, gentlemen, that just because I use tarot for magic and witchcraft doesn't mean everybody does. So let me start off by asking, do you use tarot in a magical sense that way?
yes.
Not necessarily. I use, like I said, I have tarot decks that I use for spiritual connection, others just for psychological introspection. You know, it really depends.
Introspection.
And not just tarot, but other forms of cartomancy. You know, I use Lenormand, I use oracles, which lately I'm using a lot. When I started with tarot, I don't know, I didn't connect with oracles in general. Uh,
Yeah.
and even though tarot is an oracle as well, but I'm talking like those oracles that have like keywords and that have nothing to do with tarot itself.
Hmm.
Um, but I expanded my practice, you know, with other forms of cartomancy, and same thing. You know, some I use for spiritual growth or spiritual messages, and other ones just for psychological exploration.
And I also um the idea of using them for magic. Magic is whatever you want it to be,
Hmm.
and tarot for me and cards and decks and charms and all those things, those are simply tools to help me get as much clarity and information so that I know how to move forward with my practice.
Exactly.
So, and yes, I have done spreads about magic that I want to work on, and the cards tell me one thing and I do the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's what happens. And but it's like it's and I have my specific tarot deck for my personal magic is the Wizard's Tarot, the Corinne Kenner. This is the one for me that really gets my old school magician, my old school hermit really going, my alchemist charged up.
Yeah, alchemist.
So
I think honestly, when it comes to magic, um, let me explain to everybody what I mean when I say magic. Organizing intention. I use the tarot cards to organize my intention. If it's work related, I'll use cards that are pentacles in the Taurus family, the 5, 6, and 7 of pentacles. Um, I will arrange the cards in my desired story and then meditate on that to bring it into reality. Which is pretty much, I think, how everybody does it, but I can't speak for everybody. I do know that laying out the cards in your desired formation is crucial, because sitting there shuffling and thinking about your question is fine. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's an active thing. It's not passive. You're not receiving messages. You're sending this message out into the universe. What is your thought process on that, Gerald?
I have some standard spreads that I follow when if I'm wanting to cast a spell. Don't come for me, YouTube. Y'all know that I'm a witch and boys can be witches too. But it helps me to think about what I am wanting to do. I also use the cards to get an indication of which deity would be willing to work with me, and that's actually very, very helpful. And there's a lot of goddess decks out there and gods and goddess decks that are a great way to do that. So I think I answered your question, Bobby, but yes, I do that. And but again, it's like this, it's for me, it's a conversation. What am I wanting to do? Because it's like asking a question before you get a reading. You got to have a good question to get an appropriate answer. So
yeah, I love that when we do readings online and we have to say, okay, let's reword that. Let's see if we can ask that in a better way. Because we do want the best answer. Now, not everybody uses tarot in that fashion, and I get that. But it's like you say, it just makes sense to me. It is the one form of magic that I truly just don't have any doubts about at all. You know, my herb lore, sucky. My crystal magic could be better. You know, but when it comes to tarot witch, to being a tarot witch, I'm awesome. And this is where knowing your cards inside and out comes in. You know, pulling the right card for the right spell or the right formation, as I call it. There's a lot of cards that mean change. What kind of change are you wanting to bring into your life? You want sudden change, drastic change, painful change, natural change. These are all different cards in the major arcana and minors.
Well, and it's Tom from Early Ritual oftentimes uses tarot as a way of understanding the psyche. He's very Jungian with his approach. Great. I mean, I think it's lovely. So
I think my problem with tarot a lot of the time is I understand it, but I couldn't tell you how I understand it. And it's always been that way. Have you ever looked at somebody and just thought, you're a dick? And you don't know why you think that? But you're usually right. Anyway, yeah. The concept of tarot for magic has always intrigued me and made sense to me.
it's just a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool.
It's just a tool. And if you need a tool, something to help you get clarity, you can do it in a book, you can do it in a Bible, you can do it in playing cards, you can do it in tasseomancy, you can do it in prayer, you can go to different services. I think just figure out what works for you and then do it.
Yeah,
Gerald on a soapbox.
Yeah, people with different forms of divination, they need a tangible source of information, because that's what we get in the cards, right? What we get in spreads too. When we do a spread, it's like a way of organizing information. And divination tools in general, they're a physical representation of possibly a abstract concept or a situation. You know, we can find it in tarot, but we can find it also in playing cards, Lenormand, shells, needles, different forms of tasseomancy. You know, these are physical representations that help us understand information that we're trying to extrapolate from an ethereal source. You know,
look at you, all kinds of good words. I love that.
Well, and I think that's really it is an important thing is figure out what works for you, but don't be scared of the things that don't work for you. I mean, that's just, I'm very spiritually curious. And so I'm always curious and I'm approaching it very respectfully. So, but if it's what you need.
Yeah, like for example, I like combining divination tools. So I do spreads in which I combine tarot, Lenormand, geomantic sticks, crystals, etc., in a spread in which I get information, and that works for me. And to me, combining divination tools gives me like a richer, deeper message than just using one tool by itself. That's my personal
When we layer it, it gives it dimension. When we're layering our cards with oracle cards, tarot cards, Lenormand, runes. I love watching your runes when you use them, Ramon. I know you've tried to help me out with my rune studies, and it's just I look at the paper and I literally hear it, and I've tried to take it slow. This week I'm going to learn this one. It just doesn't click with my brain. So
then don't try to force it.
I'm not. I gave up. I have into other things.
Yeah.
Like one of my decks, which one was it, Ramon? Is it Hermetic? No, one of the decks.
Hermetic Tarot.
One of the decks I have has runes associated with it also, and the I Ching. I can't remember which deck it was. I don't use it. It's not one that's in my working stash. I keep it because I want to learn the I Ching. I want to learn runes. And, so that is something I'm holding on to. Like you were saying, maybe not now, but in the future, I'll bond with it. That's one I'm holding on to just in case. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and I Ching is a beautiful divination system. It's actually one of the oldest ones. And,
what is your favorite divination system?
It's a hard question. To me, I don't know. It's really It's God. I don't know. I want to say tarot. Tarot, but it's much more. That's not fair. I don't know. I like them all. It's
Gotta
it
catch
really
'em all.
depends on the mood. There's some days I don't want to touch a tarot deck. I just want to use geomantic sticks, and I have them accessible. I have them right here in my table. You know, I have my geomantic sticks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they're. It really depends how I feel at the moment. It's also a matter of, I don't know, practicality. What's more accessible to me at the moment. That's why I have my divination pack with me always, because I can access different tools depending on my mood, and
I
depending
love
on the
that.
question. You know,
Ms. Tara D asked a question at 9 after,
Oh well, let's
not too
go
far up
back
from the
and
bottom.
see. Okay, I
Oh, 6 after,
see
6 after, sorry. 6 after.
6
six.
4, 6 5, 6 6. Here we go. Um, that's Madu. That is not Mr. Here
Question:
we
do you
go.
ever feel that too many tools and or layers can overcomplicate? Not really.
Not really.
No, not no, not really. Because each one of them have like a different message. It's like when you do a spread with different cards, you're getting different vibes, different elements, different energies. If you understand the other tools, it's just like reading another card. You know, it's the only thing is the energy is much more intense. It doesn't complicate it. On the contrary, to me, it gives me like a richer reading.
The challenge for me is when it's so much information, I'm not able to translate it or express it concisely for the person for whom I'm reading.
Yeah.
So that's for me, it's one of those things that it's like I need to pull back because I'm getting so much information. I don't know how to convey useful information to the person who's asking.
Hmm.
When I've gone too far into like trying to dig out an answer on the spread, um, I'll give you, for instance, say in the Libra spot, something is happening and I want to throw clarifier cards on it. Sometimes I will not keep, but 3 or 4 cards. But once I reach that fourth card or something, I mean, it's like a plateau. There's nothing there. I feel nothing. And I know I've gone too far. Um, it's an interesting thing. It's, throwing clarifiers, I do get more information, but if I've gone too far, it's literally like my ancestors say, "Whoa!" and it whip me back by the back of the head. I can't feel anything. I can't see anything. I don't. It just doesn't. Um,
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
when y'all have watched me do readings. I mean, when we do moon alchemy readings, we're all, I'm using I'm using whole circle punched cards and bibliomancy, and let's throw in an oracle card, and by the way, here's a dice and a fortune cookie.
I
Hmm.
um
love all your tools. Your homemade
so
tools
well,
are
thank you.
just phenomenal.
So I think if it's something that if it's not leaving me satisfied, then I'm not doing it properly. If all that's going on, and yes, I'm going to do it, I'm going to say it. If all that's happening is you're just edging and edging and edging, and you do not have a satisfactory ending, that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. That is the
And
truth.
look at Ramon. He's just like,
Yeah.
You made
You can
Ramon blush.
you can apply it in any sphere. I think
that's
what
true.
complicate. Yeah, if you don't understand the tool, that's what complicates it. You know, because
Yes.
if you master it and you can lay out 100 cards, you'll be able to read it flawlessly. You know, with it without complication, basically. But it's when you start layering ones, just different divination tools just for the sake of it, and don't understand the meaning. That's where the complication comes. It blocks the flow of the energy.
Yes.
And then it becomes a question for me of not only can you do something, but should you do something? Should you reach for that extra divination tool to add into this reading? Should you throw a rune on top of the tarot oracle and
It depends
all
on
the
the attention.
mistakes?
Why would you in the first place? You know, if it's just to impress the person and say, "Oh, I'm gonna throw in another tool," it's pointless. You know, you're
Yeah.
just shooting yourself in the foot.
More tools does not make a better reader.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
And you know, exceptionally good readers, you know, they're just tools that are being
Exactly.
used to help the help with the reading.
Mm-hmm.
I do get a lot of shit. Well, not shit. I get a lot of questions. Why do you use so many tarot cards? It's because I read in a choose your own adventure style.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's
One
the answer. I
question.
love that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is, it's a choose your own adventure. This is going to lead to this, which is going to lead to this. And it's never the same group of decks that I use for reading, but it
Mm-hmm.
works for me. And like you say, I'm not going to try to force myself to do something that doesn't work for me. Um,
I
so
like that. That's good.
we talk about purchasing responsibly. There is wisdom in that because a lot of people, when they're new to tarot, do the same thing. They go out and they just keep buying decks. They don't know why they're buying them. They just want to buy them. They want to possess them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can understand that to a degree. You're trying to find your vibe. You're trying to find what floats your boat there. But at the same point, decks are not cheap. You don't need to go all cray cray. You know, if I can't afford a deck, I won't buy it. You
Mm-hmm.
know? And I worry that a lot of people new to tarot just want to be like Gerald and
I don't want
collect all
people to
these
be like
cards.
Gerald. I don't want people to be like Gerald. I want people, you know, as I've said, if you want to read tarot, you really only need one deck.
One deck,
And
one divination tool. You don't need 20
yeah,
either. It's
and
what works for you.
the other
I'm
thing
one of
is,
those ones on the extreme. Yeah.
and you don't even need a deck. You can use little pieces of paper.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What we were talking about earlier, different types of divination and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Gentlemen, we've been on for an hour and 15 just about. I'm gonna have to call it, but I want to thank you both so much for being
Oh,
here. Nothing
alrighty.
makes me happier than
We can go
talking
on a
to
little
you.
bit longer if you want.
I
Unless
can't.
okay, I thought so.
Yeah, I gotta.
Mm.
I gotta bail. Something I
This
promised
was
somebody I'd
fun.
do tonight. But yeah, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Stick around
Thank
backstage.
you.
And anybody watching, if you would like information on talking to one of us about tarot or being on your channel or coming on our channels, please use the email and the links provided. All right. And I will see you guys soon. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.